My own son declared me incompetent. He told the court I was losing my mind, that I couldn't manage my life. He wanted my estate, my freedom, my dignity. He thought the old judge was finished, but he forgot one thing. I wrote the law he was trying to use against me. The knot of my tie felt like a rope, tight against my throat. I loosened it, staring at my reflection in the long hallway mirror. Sunday, 7 o'clock. Time for dinner at David's house. The man looking back at me was Judge Robert Miller, retired, 70 years old. The lines around my eyes were earned, decades spent staring down criminals, weighing evidence, delivering justice. I had seen the worst of humanity in my courtroom. Greed, cruelty, betrayal. I always believed my home was a sanctuary from that darkness. I was wrong. If you're listening to this, subscribe and let me know where you're watching from. This story isn't easy to tell. It's about the day the gavel fell on my own family. I missed Helen, my wife. She was the warmth in this large, quiet house. Since she passed 2 years ago, the silence had grown louder. These Sunday dinners were my anchor, the only thing holding David and me together. David was my only child. Everything I built, every sacrifice, it was all for him. I set up a generous trust, ensuring he, his wife Sarah, and my grandchildren would never want for anything. I wanted him to have the easy life I never did. Maybe that was my mistake. I picked up my car keys from the silver bowl. A familiar ache settled in my chest. Pride mixed with a growing loneliness. David was successful, but lately he seemed distant, busy, always busy. I told myself it was work, the pressure of a young family. I was lying to myself. The distance wasn't accidental. It was strategic. Then the phone rang. The sharp sound cut through the silence. I checked the caller ID. Mark Evans. Mark had been my lawyer for 30 years. He started as my clerk. He was one of the few people I trusted completely. Mark never called on Sundays. My stomach tightened. I answered, already walking toward the door. Mark, whatever it is, it'll have to wait. I'm late for David's. Robert. Mark's voice was sharp, strained. I stopped dead in my tracks. Mark never sounded like this. He was always calm, measured. Sir, you have to see this. Right now. I'm sending it to your email. I sighed, annoyed. See what? Mark, I'm retired. I'm going to my son's for dinner. I'll look at it later. I was about to hang up. I just wanted one night of peace. That's when he interrupted. His voice dropped low, urgent, almost unrecognizable. Wait, Robert, listen to me very carefully. This concerns him. This concerns David. He paused. Take a look at what I just sent you before you walk into that house. A cold dread spread from my stomach, sharp and icy. What are you talking about, Mark? Is David in trouble? Just check your email. Please, Robert, I wouldn't ask if it wasn't a catastrophe. He hung up. I stood frozen in the hallway. The silence of the house felt heavy now, oppressive. My heart hammered against my ribs. A catastrophe. Mark didn't use that word lightly. Reluctantly, slowly, I walked into my study. The room lined with law books and photographs. A life I thought I understood. I sat down heavily in my leather chair and opened my laptop. The screen glowed brightly in the dim room. There it was, an email from Mark. Subject line, urgent. Read immediately. I opened the attachment, a PDF. Legal documents. I started to read. The breath left my body. My hands began to shake, uncontrollably. It was a formal petition filed with the state court. A petition for emergency conservatorship over me. The document claimed that I, Robert James Miller, was suffering from severe mental decline, dementia, confusion, paranoia, and inability to manage my own financial affairs. It painted a picture of a man who was losing his mind, a man who needed to be locked away, and at the bottom of the page, clear as day, was the petitioner's signature. David Miller, my son. I stared at the name, the letters blurred. My own son. I stumbled back from the desk. A stack of books crashed to the floor. I leaned against the bookshelf, gasping for air. The world tilted sideways. Incompetent? Demented? David was trying to erase me. I read the details. My vision blurred with tears of rage and disbelief. He cited my grief over Helen as the trigger. He claimed I was making rash financial decisions. He even mentioned last month when I misplaced my keys. He twisted it into evidence of severe memory loss. It was a lie. A calculated, vicious, Meticulously constructed lie, and it was about to get much worse. I grabbed my phone and called Mark back. My voice was a hoarse whisper. How could he do this? Mark? How could my own son do this? Robert, take a deep breath, Mark said grimly. It gets worse. I was alerted by the bank late Friday afternoon. Mr. Thompson, the manager at your main branch, he called me in a panic. Why? I demanded. The anger began to burn through the shock. I needed facts. Because David has been draining your accessible accounts for the last 6 months. Rapidly. I felt the blood drain from my face. How much? Hundreds of thousands of dollars, Robert. Hundreds of thousands. Gone. Stolen. He tried to access the main trust early last week, Mark explained. The bank flagged it. They denied him access. The trust stipulations are clear. He doesn't inherit fully until you pass, and you are the sole trustee. The pieces clicked into place. A grotesque, sickening picture. This wasn't about my health. This wasn't about protecting me. So the conservatorship, my voice cracked, is his workaround, Mark finished, his tone heavy with disgust. If he can prove you're incompetent, he becomes the conservator. He gets immediate, total control. The trust, the house, everything. He bypasses the will. He takes it all now, while I'm still alive. I thought about the dinner waiting for me, the smiles, the polite conversation. It was all a performance, a charade. My own son was trying to steal my life while pouring me a glass of wine. The depth of the betrayal was paralyzing. This wasn't a misunderstanding. This was a calculated assault. What do we do, Mark? I asked. The judge and me, the fighter, slowly woke up from the shock. First, you cannot go to that dinner, Mark said firmly. You cannot let him know that you know. If he realizes you're aware, he might accelerate things. We need time to prepare. We needed to understand why he was suddenly so desperate. And I had a feeling the answer was dark. I looked at the photograph on my desk. David on his graduation day, beaming, holding his law degree. I had been so proud. Had I been so blind to his true character? I picked up my phone and dialed David's number. My hand still shook, but my resolve was hardening. He answered on the second ring, laughter in the background, the sound of my grandchildren. Hey, Dad, we were just wondering where you were. Everything all right? His voice, so normal, so casual. It made my skin crawl. I had to lie. It tasted like ash in my mouth. I had to play the part he had written for me. David, I'm so sorry. I forced the words out, making my voice sound weak. Tired. I won't be able to make it tonight. I'm not feeling well. A sudden blinding headache. His tone shifted instantly, overly concerned, dripping with false sympathy. Oh no, Dad. Are you okay? Do you need me to come over? Should I call Dr. Peterson? A few hours ago, I would have found that comforting. Now I recognize the manipulation. He wasn't concerned. He was probing, looking for evidence. Dr. Peterson. A new doctor David recommended just a month ago. Dr. Alex Peterson. Smooth, young, too eager to please. I realize now it was part of the setup. Peterson was likely already bought and paid for. No, I said quickly. I just need to rest. I'll be fine by morning. My apologies to Sarah. Don't worry about it, Dad. Just take care of yourself. We love you. I hung up, feeling nauseous. We love you. The words felt like a threat. The next morning, I was at Mark's office before the city woke up. The sky was gray, heavy. Mark looked exhausted. All right, Robert, let's look at the damage. He laid out the financial statements on his large oak desk. It was a massacre. David hadn't just been taking money. He had been hemorrhaging it. Massive wire transfers. Offshore accounts. Vegas, Mark said, pointing to a line item. Macau. High-stakes gambling organizations. Gambling. The word hit me like a physical blow. And these? I pointed to massive investments. Millions of dollars. High-risk tech startups, Mark explained. Already evaporated. Gone. He was trying to win it all back. He only dug the hole deeper. He's desperate, Mark concluded, rubbing his temples. The debts are astronomical, Robert. But that wasn't the worst part. It never is. It looks like he borrowed money, Mark said slowly, from some very dangerous people. Loan sharks. He used your name as a guarantor, Mark added quietly. Without your knowledge. Forgery. My name. My reputation. Used as collateral for his addiction. But why didn't he just ask me for help?
I whispered. I would have given him anything,
Because this isn't about me, Robert, Mark said, his voice flat. It's about greed and entitlement. He didn't want help. He wanted it all, and he didn't want you to know he had failed so spectacularly. His shame had turned monstrous. I felt a surge of cold anger. I need to talk to him, Mark, face to face. Mark shook his head vehemently. Absolutely not. He's cornered, Robert. If he knows you're fighting back, he could become dangerous. Dangerous? He's my son. He could try to have you temporarily committed for evaluation, Mark warned, using Dr. Peterson before we can get a hearing. I gripped the arms of the chair. The thought of being forced into a facility, drugged, treated like a helpless old man, it terrified me. I had to fight this like a judge, not a father. So we wait, I asked. The frustration boiled inside me. We dig, Mark corrected. We need proof that you are competent. I've scheduled an evaluation with Dr. Evelyn Adams, the best neurologist in the state. That's the fence. We need a fence. He paused, looking at me carefully. There's something else, Robert. Something that changes the game. I braced myself. What else could there be? Mr. Thompson, the bank manager, Mark said, his voice lowering. He didn't just call me because of the flagged transactions. He called me because someone else came to him first. Someone terrified. Who? Sarah, your daughter-in-law. I was stunned. Sarah, always quiet, polite, almost meek. I had assumed she was in on it, that she enjoyed the lifestyle. The cars, the clothes. I had misjudged her completely, and that mistake almost cost me everything. Sarah, are you sure? She came to Mr. Thompson privately, Mark explained. 2 days before David tried to access the trust. She was shaking, Robert. He leaned forward. She confessed that David has been forging her signature on the withdrawal slips and the investment documents. Forgery. Again, but it got darker. He's been threatening her, Robert, Mark said, his voice heavy with disgust. Abusing her, telling her that if she didn't go along with his plans, he would ruin her. Take their children. This was the twist. The sickening realization that David's corruption ran deeper than I could have imagined. He wasn't just betraying me. He was terrorizing his wife. He was a monster. She's not an accomplice, I realized out loud. She's a victim. Exactly, Mark said. She's willing to help us. She has proof, but she is terrified of him. A heavy weight settled on me. I needed Sarah's testimony, but using it meant exposing David's abuse publicly, destroying her family, and knowing David's desperation. It could put her and my grandchildren in immediate danger. Does he know she spoke to the bank? I asked. No, but if we bring her in as a witness, he'll know instantly. We have to get her out of that house, Robert. Her and the grandchildren. I need to see her, I said. Without David knowing, we need a safe place. Mark arranged the meeting that afternoon at a quiet art gallery. Sarah was already there when I arrived. When she turned around, I was shocked. She was pale, her eyes red and swollen, and then I saw it, a faint bruise on her cheekbone. Despite the makeup, David did that, my son did that. When she saw me, she flinched. Judge Miller, I'm so sorry, she whispered, her voice trembling. I didn't know what to do. He wouldn't stop. Sarah, please, call me Robert. I guided her to a bench in the corner. Mark told me what's been happening. My first priority is your safety, and the safety of the children. She looked down, ashamed, twisting her wedding ring around her finger. I should have told you sooner. I knew about the gambling, but he kept saying it was fine. Then the losses started piling up, she continued. He became different. Different how? I asked gently. Well, angry, volatile. He started drinking heavily. She took a shaky breath. And then the men started calling, threatening us. The loan sharks, I stated. She nodded. A choked sob escaped her lips. They said if he didn't pay, they would hurt the children. My blood ran cold. He put my grandchildren in danger. The money. He panicked, Sarah whispered. That's when he came up with the plan for the conservatorship, he said. It was the only way to get the money fast enough. To protect us. He lied to her too, used her fear to manipulate her. Did he hurt you, Sarah? I pointed gently towards her cheek. She hesitated, then nodded slowly, the tears falling freely now. He said, "If I didn't sign the affidavit supporting the petition, he would tell the police I was the one who stole the money," she whispered. "That I was the gambler. That I would lose the children." I felt a wave of cold fury wash over me, the calculated cruelty of it. He was willing to destroy everyone around him. "I have proof, Robert," she said, reaching into her purse with shaking hands. She pulled out a small digital voice recorder. I started recording him when he was angry. She pressed play. David's voice filled the space between us, slurred, vicious, laced with hatred. "You will sign the affidavit, Sarah. Do you understand me? You will sit there and tell them the old man is losing his mind." A chill ran down my spine, the venom in his voice. A pause on the recording, the sound of glass shattering. "If you breathe a word of this to anyone," the recording continued, "I swear to God I will take the kids and disappear. You will never see them again." I closed my eyes. The sound of his voice twisted a knife in my heart. It was unrecognizable. It was the voice of a monster. The son I loved was gone. He also forged my signature in the loan applications. Sarah continued, her voice gaining a sliver of strength. "I have the original documents, hidden. This was the proof we needed." "The smoking gun, Sarah," I said, taking her hand. It was ice cold. "If you help us, I promise I will protect you. We will get you and the children out of that house today. Mike has arranged a safe house. But you have to be strong. You have to testify." She nodded, wiping her tears, a spark of determination in her eyes. "I'm tired of being scared. I want him to be stopped." The tide was turning, but the storm was far from over. We moved quickly. While David was out meeting with his lawyers, Mark's team helped Sarah and the children get to the safe house. They were gone before David realized what was happening. We prepared our counter-petition. We had the medical evaluations from Dr. Adams. The results were clear. I was completely competent. We had the financial records, the recordings. We thought we had him cornered. We were wrong. A few days later, the doorbell rang. It was late. I wasn't expecting anyone. I looked through the peephole. A man in a dark suit. Looked like a cop. I opened the door. "Judge Miller?" he asked. His voice was gruff. "Yes. Detective Miles." He flashed a badge. "Homicide." "Can I come in?" "Homicide." My stomach dropped. "What is this about?" Detective Miles stepped inside. His eyes scanned the hallway, taking everything in. "We're investigating a man named Victor Malkov," Miles said. "Do you know him?" Victor Malkov. The name meant nothing to me. "No, I don't. He's a known loan shark, Judge," Miles said, watching me closely. "A very dangerous man. We believe your son, David Miller, is involved with him." I tried to keep my face neutral. "A judge's mask. Involved how? He owes him money." "A lot of money," Miles said. "But we think it's more than that. We think your son is laundering money for Malkov." Laundering money. The words hit me like a physical blow. David wasn't just a gambler. He was a criminal. "The tech startups David invested in," Miles continued. "They were shells, fronts for Malkov's operation. David was cleaning the money. This explained everything. The massive amounts of money, the desperation, the danger. David wasn't just trying to pay off debts. He was trying to escape a criminal enterprise." "Why are you telling me this?" I asked. "Because Malkov is under surveillance," Miles said, "and we saw your son meeting with him 2 nights ago. It didn't look friendly. If David is planning to run, or if he can't pay, Malkov won't hesitate to hurt him, or anyone close to him." He paused, letting the threat sink in. "We need to know what David is planning, before someone gets killed." He left his card on the console table. "Call me if you hear anything." I closed the door. My legs felt weak. The danger was real. Immediate. It wasn't just about the money anymore. It was about survival. David's corruption had put us all in the crosshairs. Mark called me the next morning, his voice urgent. "Robert, David found out. We're contesting the petition. He knows Sarah left. He's furious. His lawyer just filed a motion to accelerate the court date. End of the week. Why the rush? He needs the money now, Mark confirmed. Malkov is closing in. He wants to push this through before the full extent of his crimes comes to light. But that wasn't all. David had a new strategy. A smear campaign. It was a calculated assault on my reputation. He wanted to destroy my credibility before the trial. I went to my old club for lunch, a place where I had spent decades among colleagues and friends. As I walked through the dining room, the conversations quieted. People looked at me with pity, with suspicion. The atmosphere changed. The whispers started. An old colleague, Judge Harrison, approached me. Thomas Harrison, a man I once respected, his expression somber, condescending. "Robert, how are you holding up?" he asked, his voice low. We heard about the difficulties, the memory issues. The rumors had spread fast. Poison in the well. "I'm fine, Thomas," I said stiffly. "David is just worried about you," he continued, patting my arm condescendingly, like I was a child. "He came to me for advice. David got to him. He was turning my friends against me. He said you were very confused the other day," Thomas said, leaning in. "He said you forgot the name of your own wife." I gritted my teeth. The lie was so cruel, so precise. He was using Helen against me. I faced an agonizing dilemma. Defending myself vigorously might be interpreted as the paranoia he claimed I had. Remaining silent allowed the poison to spread. I chose composure, but the humiliation burned in my throat. "I appreciate the concern, Thomas," I said, my voice even, cold. "But I assure you, I am perfectly fine." I walked away, feeling their eyes on my back. The reputation I had built over a lifetime was being dismantled, piece by piece, by my own son. The night before the hearing, Mark and I were finalizing our strategy. The city lights glittered below. The weight of the coming battle hung heavy in the air. "David's lawyer is Alan Stone," Mark warned me, pacing the room. "He's a shark. He plays dirty. He will use your age, your grief, everything against you." "I know Alan Stone," I said, ambitious, ruthless, no moral compass. "He's going to paint a picture of a grieving widower," Mark continued, "vulnerable and unstable, and he's going to attack Sarah, viciously. He'll claim she's a bitter wife trying to secure a better divorce settlement, that she's lying about the abuse. The forgery, the realization that Sarah would be attacked on the stand was sickening. I had promised to protect her. The weight of that responsibility felt crushing. "We have one more witness," Mark said. Martha, our housekeeper for 20 years. She retired last month. What does Martha have to do with this?" "She called me yesterday," Mark explained. "She saw the news about the petition. She was furious. She said she witnessed David's behavior deteriorating. The drinking, the rage, and she overheard something. A phone call." "What phone call?" "David talking to Malkov," Mark said. "He was begging for more time. He said he was getting the conservatorship, that the money was coming. He said the old man is clueless. He won't fight it." Martha's testimony would corroborate Sarah's. It would prove David's motive, his desperation. "There's one more thing," Mark said. "The judge assigned to the case. Judge Chen. She's young, inexperienced. Stone might try to overwhelm her, control the narrative." I looked at Mark. I knew what I had to do. I knew the law, the procedure, the tactics, better than Alan Stone ever would. It was a risk. If I stumbled, I would lose everything, but it was a risk I had to take. "Mark," I said, the decision clear in my mind, "I want to conduct the cross-examinations myself, both Sarah's and David's." Mark stopped pacing. He looked surprised. "Robert, are you sure? It's highly irregular. It's a huge gamble." "It's the only way," I said. "Judge Chen needs to see me in action. She needs to see that I am not the confused old man David claims I am." I needed her to see the mind of Judge Miller was as sharp as ever. "And David," my voice dropped, "he needs to face me. Not a lawyer. Me." Mark hesitated, then nodded slowly. "All right, Robert. If anyone can do it, it's you." We worked late into the night, anticipating every lie, every trap. As we prepared, the reality of what I was about to do weighed heavily on me. I was about to destroy my son to save myself. The courtroom was packed. The gallery was a sea of faces. Old colleagues, friends, reporters eager for a scandal. The air was thick with tension. I sat at the respondents' table with Mark, my hands steady, my mind clear. David was at the other table with Alan Stone. He looked calm, composed, dressed in an expensive suit, the picture of a concerned son. He glanced at me once, a fleeting look of pity. Rehearsed for the audience. He thought he still had the upper hand. He was wrong. Judge Chen entered, young, serious. The courtroom rose. The proceedings began. Alan Stone stood up, delivered his opening statement. It was a masterpiece of manipulation. Your Honor, Stone began, his voice smooth and sympathetic. This is a tragic case. A case of a loving son forced to make the hardest decision of his life. To protect his father, he painted a picture of me as a broken man, lost in the fog of dementia. Judge Robert Miller was a giant in the legal community, Stone continued. But time and grief are cruel enemies. He cited the joint account withdrawals, claiming they were gifts I had approved, but forgotten. David Miller has no choice, Stone concluded, his voice cracking with false emotion. He must step in to protect his father's legacy before it's too late. He was good, very good. He almost had me believing it. Mark delivered our opening statement. Calm, factual, emphasizing my competency. The suspicious timing of the petition, coinciding with David's financial crisis. Then, Alan Stone called his first witness. David took the stand. Looking somber, respectful, he played the role of the grieving son perfectly. He knew how to perform. I had taught him well. Mr. Miller, when did you first notice changes in your father's behavior? Stone asked gently. About a year ago, David said sadly, looking directly at Judge Chen. He started forgetting names, repeating stories. He paused, shook his head. He got lost driving home from the club. A route he's taken for 30 years. It was heartbreaking. Lies. Every word a lie. I kept my face neutral. And the financial transactions? The large withdrawals? Stone asked. Dad insisted, David said. He wanted me to invest the money for her. But then he would forget he authorized the transfers. He accused me of stealing from him. I realized then that he needed help. It was a convincing performance. I saw Judge Chen looking at me with concern, with pity. The trap was set. Now it was time to spring it. When Stone finished, Mark stood up. Your Honor, with the court's permission, Judge Miller would like to conduct the cross-examination himself. The courtroom buzzed, a ripple of shock. Alan Stone immediately shot to his feet. Outraged. Objection, Your Honor. This is highly irregular. This is clearly a stunt. Judge Chen looked at me, her expression skeptical. Judge Miller, are you sure about this? Mr. Evans is a highly competent attorney. I stood up slowly, buttoning my jacket. I felt the eyes of everyone in the courtroom on me. This was the moment. Your Honor, I said, my voice clear, resonant, the voice of authority I had used for decades. This case is about my life, my competency, my freedom. I paused. Looked directly at Judge Chen. I believe the court needs to hear from me directly, to assess my mental state, not through the filter of testimony, but through my actions. I turned my gaze to David, and I believe my son needs to answer these questions to my face. Judge Chen hesitated, studying me closely, assessing me, then nodded. Very well. Proceed, Judge Miller. I walked toward the witness stand. The courtroom held its breath. David watched me, a flicker of uncertainty, fear crossing his face. He wasn't expecting this. He wasn't expecting the old judge to fight back. David, I began, my voice calm, measured. You testified under oath that I authorized the withdrawals from the joint accounts. Is that correct? Yes, Dad, he said, trying to sound patient, patronizing. And you invested that money on my behalf? In tech startups? Yes, exactly as we discussed. Can you tell the court, I asked, my tone shifting slightly, sharper, where you invested the $500,000 withdrawn between March and August of this year? David hesitated. A beat too long, he cracked his knuckles, a nervous habit he had since childhood. He only did it when he was lying. In various ventures. As I said. Which ventures? I pressed. My gaze locked on his. I don't recall the exact names right now, he stammered, looking towards Alan Stone. Stone stared straight ahead, offering no help. You don't recall the names of the companies where you invested $500,000 of my money? It's complicated, David deflected. Let me refresh your memory, I said. I picked up a document from our table. Exhibit A. The bank records. Is it not true that $300,000 was wired to an offshore account associated with the Golden Phoenix Casino in Macau? David went pale. The color drained from his face. Alan Stone shot up. Objection. Relevance. This is a fishing expedition. It goes directly to the motive. Your Honor, I countered, my voice sharp, cutting through the objection. The petitioner claims he was protecting my finances, but the evidence suggests he was misappropriating them to cover massive gambling debts. Judge Chen looked at the documents, then back at David. Overruled, she said. Her interest piqued. Answer the question, Mr. Miller. David swallowed hard, his composure cracking, the mask beginning to slip. I might have made some personal investments. With my money, I stated. Not a question, a fact. You told me to, he insisted. His voice rising. Let's talk about those tech startups, I continued. You testified they were exciting opportunities. Is it not true that these companies were, in fact, shell corporations, used to launder money for a man named Victor Malkov? The courtroom gasped. David looked terrified. He knew. I knew. That's ridiculous, he shouted. Is it? I turned to the gallery. We have testimony from your former housekeeper, Martha Jenkins, who overheard you begging Mr. Malkov for more time, promising him the money from my estate. David glared at Martha, who sat stoically in the back row. She's lying. She's a disgruntled former employee. Let's talk about the main trust, I continued, moving closer. The tension in the courtroom escalating. The conservatorship is your attempt to bypass the trust stipulations, isn't it? To gain immediate control of assets you haven't earned and don't deserve? No, I'm trying to help you, David shouted, desperation creeping into his voice. You're confused. You don't understand. This was the core of it, the final confrontation. A father's love crashing against a son's betrayal. Every instinct screamed at me to stop, to not destroy my own child. But the judge in me knew justice required the truth, no matter how painful. David, let's talk about your wife, Sarah. He flinched. You submitted an affidavit from her, I continued, stating that she shared your concerns about my health, that she witnessed my decline. Yes, she did, he said, defensively. Is it not true that you coerced her into signing that affidavit? No. That you threatened to take her children away if she didn't comply? That's a lie. That you physically assaulted her? I pointed to the photograph of her bruised face. Entered into evidence earlier. David's eyes widened in shock. He realized he was trapped. She's lying, he shouted. His calm facade shattered completely. She's always been unstable. She's trying to ruin me. The classic defense of an abuser. Deny, attack, reverse victim and offender. Is she? I turned to Mark. Who brought over the digital voice recorder? Small, black, deadly. I handed it to the bailiff. Your Honor, I submit into evidence Exhibit D, a recording of the petitioner threatening his wife. Alan Stone objected frantically. Hearsay, spousal privilege. I countered every objection with case law. President. Judge Chen allowed it. I pressed play. David's slurred, vicious voice echoed through the silent courtroom. You will sign the affidavit, Sarah. Do you understand me? The courtroom was stunned, the raw hatred in his voice. You will sit there and tell them the old man is losing his mind. A gasp from the gallery. I will take the kids and disappear. You will never see them again. The silence was absolute. broken only by the sound of David's ragged breathing. David stared at the floor. Defeated, broken, but I wasn't finished. I had to expose the full extent of his corruption. The rat at the core, and the loan applications. I continued, my voice ringing with controlled anger. The ones you claimed Sarah co-signed? The ones where you used my name as guarantor? He didn't answer. He couldn't. Is it not true that you forged her signature? And mine? I presented the documents. Exhibit, along with the analysis from a handwriting expert. Irrefutable proof. David exploded. He jumped up from the witness stand, his face red with rage, his eyes wild with desperation. You did this, he screamed, pointing a shaking finger at me. You always controlled everything. You never let me breathe. You never thought I was good enough. The mask was off. The loving son was gone. It's my money, he shouted, raving like a madman. It should have been mine. I deserve it. I earned it. In his place was a desperate, greedy, abusive man, consumed by entitlement and rage. The bailiffs moved to restrain him. Ellen Stone tried to calm him down, but it was too late. David had shown the court exactly who he was, and in his rage, he had proven my case. He wasn't protecting me. He was exploiting me. He wasn't dealing with a confused old man. He was facing a man in full command of his faculties. Judge Chen banged her gavel, the sound like a gunshot. Mr. Miller, you will restrain yourself or you will be held in contempt. David slowly sat back down, breathing heavily, the fight gone out of him. He wouldn't look at me. I looked at him, not with anger, but with a profound, aching sadness. The son I loved was gone, lost forever. I have no further questions, Your Honor. I walked back to my seat. The courtroom remained silent. The verdict already clear. Judge Chen's decision was swift, decisive. In the matter of the conservatorship of Robert James Miller, she announced, her voice firm. The evidence presented today overwhelmingly demonstrates that Judge Miller is fully competent and capable of managing his own affairs. She looked at me, respect in her eye. The petitioner's claims are unsubstantiated, she continued, and appear to be motivated by financial desperation and deceit. The petition for emergency conservatorship is hereby dismissed. Relief washed over me. I had won, but the victory was bitter. But she wasn't finished. She turned her gaze to David, her expression hardening. Furthermore, she continued, the evidence presented suggests serious misconduct on the part of the petitioner. Fraud, forgery, perjury, domestic abuse, and elder abuse. The allegations of money laundering are deeply concerning. She paused. I am referring this matter to the district attorney's office for a full criminal investigation. The gavel came down again. It was over. As I watched the bailiffs escort a stunned, broken David out of the courtroom, I noticed Detective Miles standing in the back. He nodded once, then followed them out. Justice was coming for David. I felt no sense of victory, only a hollow, echoing emptiness. The aftermath was a blur. Reporters, flashing cameras, shouted questions. The fall of the Miller family. The judge who judged his own son, Mark, shielded me, led me out a side entrance. Mark drove me home. The silence in the car was heavy, filled with the ghosts of what had been lost. You did it, Robert, Mark said quietly. You saved yourself. You were magnificent in there. But I lost my son, I replied, staring out the window at the city lights. The victory felt like a defeat. In the weeks that followed, I did what I promised. I helped Sarah file for divorce, obtain a restraining order. I ensured her safety, the safety of my grandchildren. I set up a new, separate trust fund for them, so they could start a new life, away from the shadow of David's betrayal. She thanked me, her eyes filled with a mixture of gratitude, relief, and the deep sadness of a shattered life. We were survivors of the same storm, bound by the wreckage David left behind. David was formally charged. The investigation, led by Detective Miles, uncovered the full extent of his crimes: the fraud, the abuse, the money laundering. Victor Malkov was also arrested. David's criminal enterprise crumbled, facing overwhelming evidence, including my testimony He eventually pleaded guilty to avoid a lengthy trial. He was sentenced to 15 years in prison. I went to the sentencing. I needed to see it through. I needed the closure that justice provides. When they led him away in handcuffs, he didn't look at me. He never looked at me again. Months passed. The house felt emptier than ever. The silence, once a comfort, was now a constant reminder of the void left behind. One Sunday evening, I found myself standing in the hallway, looking at the mirror. The same ritual I had performed the night everything fell apart. But tonight, I wasn't getting ready for dinner at David's. I walked into the kitchen, prepared a meal, just for myself. I sat down at the dining room table. The same table where Helen and I had shared 40 years of meals, where we had celebrated David's life. I looked at the family photo on the mantelpiece. Helen holding a baby David, smiling brightly, her eyes full of hope. Me standing behind them, proud, protective, oblivious to the darkness that would one day consume our son. We looked so happy, so perfect. But the photo didn't show the cracks, the hidden flaws, the seeds of entitlement and greed that had been growing in the shadows. I had spent my life upholding justice, judging others for their crimes, demanding accountability. But I had been blind to the corruption in my own home. I had given David everything, but I had failed to teach him the most important things: integrity, humility, the true meaning of family. I had confused love with indulgence, and I paid the price. The victory in court was necessary. It was just, but it was hollow. I had upheld the law, but I had lost my legacy. I picked up my fork, the food tasteless in my mouth. I was Judge Robert Miller, retired, competent, free, and completely alone. I ate the dinner I had missed that night. Silence broken only by the ticking of the grandfather clock in the hallway, and as the sun set, casting long shadows across the room, I finally allowed myself to grieve, not just for Helen, but for the son I thought I knew, and the family we never truly were. The price of justice, I realized, was sometimes everything you loved. Thanks for listening. Please rate our story in the comments. If you enjoyed it, don't forget to subscribe. Your support means a lot, because your time matters.